the work that we're doing in Leicestershire and Rutland came from a piece of work that started in 2015, where we undertake something called experience-led commissioning. So what we did was we went and talked to 20 care homes across West Leicestershire in the 4 localities, and we spoke to the carers, we spoke to the residents that were in the home, the GP that was linked to the home, and also the families, and talked to them about what it was like currently, what we could do better, or what could be done to make it easier, better, and also what mattered most to people. And from that we came up with 2 reports, one about living in a care home and one about healthcare in a care home. And from that, there were 8 high impact actions for each of those.
Imperial AC
so
UK
care homes around those actions. And linking with Food for Life, are the actions that we had matched with the philosophy of the whole settings approach, which is how we became involved in this exciting project. So my role has been really to facilitate getting this pilot launched. And through the work that I've done with the care homes, we were able to get quick buy-in from the care homes, and they were really enthusiastic because we'd already built up a relationship with the care homes. So we've had 3 events so far. We launched on the 28th of February, having done some pre-work, and then but the weather was bad that day, I have to say. And then we had a wash-up meeting for those that were unable to attend. And we've also had an activity coordinators event where we've got the care homes now linked with either preschools or primary schools, starting to work on intergenerational work. So for me, it's all really exciting, and there's lots of things that are going on, which as we go through the questions, I'll be able to tell you a bit more about it.
Thanks, Helen. That's great. A really great introduction to your work and your role. Kerry, would you like to go next and tell us a little bit about the work at Asquith Hall?
Yeah, sure, thank you. So I think it's probably better to explain it in terms of the headings that Food for Life gave us when we started to get involved with them. So Food for Life initially got involved with Asquith Hall when we'd done some work around modified diets. So we'd produced some pureed sandwiches, which is quite unusual, I think, for people to be able to access that kind of food. But from that, we've gone on to look at catering quality, community projects, therapeutic food activity, the food experience and leadership. So under those, we've looked at lots of things, and it's been an explosion of activity actually at Asquith. So we're working with benchmarking to improve the catering quality, looking at local suppliers and care to cook training, and continuing our work on modified diets. In terms of the community, we're planning some things like an artisan food market hopefully in the future. Saturday just gone, actually, we had a service development panel to involve the wider community, so we've had relatives and local experts come to the home to discuss how we can improve everything about the home, but also food. We're working on a sensory garden. Our proprietor's actually been very generous with the budget, so we're hoping that we're going to be able to really develop the land outside our home, and that ties in a little bit, I suppose, with Incredible Edible. We're hoping to have a community garden. And then something that's quite challenging for our environment, because we're a specialist EMI, is intergenerational work, because it can be often quite difficult to introduce children into the home. But we've got a couple of ideas that I will go into a little bit more detail about later. It's just looking at how we can involve children in the environment. And then therapeutic food activity, we now have a wine and cheese Wednesday, which is very popular with the residents. We're looking at a mobile shop, and we're hoping to get some hens and have a hen party for that. And then we've also looked at personalising the eating and drinking experience for residents, and we've done a staff wellness week as well. So we've been very, very busy.
Thanks, Kerry. That's great to hear about all of the work happening at Asquith Hall. And finally, Pam, would you like to tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing?
Well, we've got a polytunnel and raised beds which are wheelchair accessible. So the residents are planting the veg for this year, maintaining it. We have involvement with the local school, with the children will come down the high school and help with any garden maintenance that is needed, and work with the residents. And any produce that is grown, we cook it in our own kitchen. We did have chickens that the residents helped me to look after, and we had the chickens from when they hatched, so the residents could actually sit and watch them. Unfortunately, we don't have our chickens anymore, but it was a great thing to have, was the chickens. It just brought so much joy to the residents. We do have families involved when, you know, things are needing, like to be picked and that. The whole family will come with their parents. The residents are out to help us. There's just so many things that the residents get involved in regard, and to keep it watered and all things like that. So the residents are really, they do take pride in their garden now because it's just flourishing. And when they're out, they can just pick the strawberries and eat them when they're picking them. And we do have a market stall in our main lobby of the home that was built, and the residents decorated it. And we sell all the produce that we have in our garden, which will go towards the welfare for activities for the residents. And once something's been put on that market, it's gone within seconds, because families coming in to visit, outside people coming in to visit, and the residents are just so proud. We have the school's involvement's been great. They actually done a recipe book with the residents. They cooked them meals with the produce that came from the garden. So they had soup, which was made by the high kids. So there's all these type of things going on.
Thanks, Pam. That's great to hear about. A really nice introduction to the work that you're doing. Thanks everyone for that, for those introductions. So I think we have everybody joined now who is planning to join. Apologies for a little bit of disruption there as we got started, as quite a lot of people joining the line as we were getting underway. But hopefully everybody can hear us okay now. I just wanted to reiterate that this webinar is being recorded and will be shared widely. So for information for everybody who is on the webinar, it is being recorded. I also just wanted to check in and let everybody know as well that if you have dialed in by phone, your phone number is visible on this webinar. So you may wish to dial out and join the webinar by Skype instead. So your phone number will be visible if you phoned in by a mobile or landline. And we're now going to move into the main part of the webinar and focus on the knowledge and learning that's been developed so far through the work in these different settings and places. And throughout this part of the webinar, if you would like to ask a question, and you're an attendee, please use the instant messenger to ask your question, and we'll be monitoring the questions that come through on instant messenger, and we will do our best to respond throughout the webinar. But there may be some questions that we can't get through today, and we'll follow those up after the webinar. So yes, please do use the instant messenger conversation to get involved in the webinar today. So I'm going to start by asking a few questions to our presenters, and we're going to hear a little bit more about the different areas of work and the knowledge that's being developed through testing out new ideas and new approaches. So my first question to our presenters today is, what does good food look like to you in a care setting? So a very broad question. Really be interested to hear what good food looks like to all of you in your roles. So let's start with Kerry. Would you be able to get us underway with that question?
Yeah, so I think for us, it's very much about personalising the food experience. So one thing, for example, that we've tried very recently is we have a resident who likes to have food from a cafe, and obviously that's not sustainable in terms of getting the food here and also financially. So we've actually purchased some of the containers that you would get in a takeaway, and we've put the food in there. So it's really just about listening and watching to what the people who you're looking after want and adapting your practice to that. That's at the heart of it, I think. And then obviously you want to look at good local ingredients where possible. So the benchmarking is really helping with that.
Thanks, Kerry. Do you want to just share a little bit more about what the benchmarking is?
Yeah, so we're not experts on that yet, but we had somebody, Karen, come out to have a look at what we're doing currently, and it's some of the standards that you can work towards for Food for Life served here. So there's 3 levels to that, as I understand it. There's bronze, silver and gold. I'm told that gold's really hard to achieve, so that makes us want to get it even more. Our home manager, Siobhan's, very much about getting the best that we can. So
thanks, Kerry. That's great. Pam, would you like to share your response to this question about what does good food look like to you?
We try to have like good colour on the plate. It's all the vegetables and things are all from our garden, and they're all organic. So the residents, are getting really good quality food when they're having their meals. We have a questionnaire that we go out to families and the residents about the meals. We have themed nights with the produce that we have. One time we had a French meal where a French cook actually came in to cook with the produce for the residents, and that went down really well. Meaningful interaction with the residents and their families and the staff is very important to get them involved in what we are growing, which is is the residents' garden. So they're pleased that they're actually getting that potato that they maybe planted that a month ago or something. So it's satisfaction for them to see their garden growing bigger and bigger.
That's great, Pam. Thank you for sharing that. And Helen, would you like to share your response with us?
Yeah, so we're working with one of the homes in West to assist them enabling residents to maintain their weight and having a good balanced diet and having an interest in food. And also, it's about a more appropriate use of oral supplements, because we've got some homes that use ONS quite a lot, and that can be because they come out of hospital on ONS, and then and then obviously if it's on prescription, they need to keep having it. But it's about helping them to reduce the length of time that their residents are on ONS, so that they can be signed off, because obviously if it's prescribed, they are supposed to give it. And it's also about, you know, you eat for love, food for love. Residents are naturally looking forward to meal times and enjoying what they are eating. And it's also about being able to access the food that is appropriate to their needs. For example, if they've got dysphagia, making sure that the food is appropriate for an individual for those residents. And also making sure that residents have a good dining experience, which includes social dining, maybe someone sharing a meal times with them and sitting talking to them, because we know when we're out, if you're out socially, you actually eat better. So it's about having somebody there to help and maybe assist you in eating your food. And also what's really exciting is that half of the care settings have been in touch to get the Food for Life Served Here licence. Like you, Carrie, they're looking to go for the bronze, silver and gold, which will be absolutely amazing. So that's where we are around that.
Thanks very much, Helen. That's great to hear about. So our next question for discussion from the presenters is what role do you think food plays in improving quality of life and well-being? So shall we start with Pam this time?
Well, when we started this, we actually won the silver from the Soil Association because of the work we done with the garden and the residents. And we had a resident that was in who had depression, and once he started to work on the garden, he was able to actually go home to live his life back with his family, because the stimulation being in the garden done wonders for him. It's the residents, a lot of them used to have you know, like allotments when they were first married, or their grandparents had allotments, and just working in the garden brings back a lot of memories for them, what they're used to, their parents or grandparents grew, and it's given them just a lot of stimulation and self-worth, being out in the fresh air and taking part, well, not really taking part actually, is growing something from start to finish and being able to sell that on and seeing everybody, oh, that was delicious, and having it cooked for them.
Yeah.
That's great to hear, Pam, and yeah, really lovely example to hear about for an individual's health and well-being in relation to these activities. So thanks, Pam. Helen, would you like to come in next?
Yeah, sure. Cedar Mews, one of our local care homes, they have fruit out all day so that residents can just help themselves whenever they fancy some fruit, and this helps to promote independence, as residents are able to take and eat fruit whenever they want to. They also organise afternoon tea if residents have when residents have visitors. So this becomes more of a social occasion and more social interaction. We've got another home, Rose Cottage, that ensure they make dishes that residents like. So they go round and they ask the residents, you know, what do you like? What do you want to eat? And this gives the residents a sense of identity and ownership. Lenthal House, they bake a lot of their own bread, and they sort of bake some of that around meal times, which helps to stimulate the appetite, because as we know, there's nothing better than smelling fresh bread. And some of our care homes have bars and they have sort of a nice social area where residents can have a drink and a relaxed chat with other residents or with their family members. Because I think it's important to remember that the residents are in their own home, they're not in a hospital. So, you know, if they want to have a drink and sit and socialise and things, they can do.
Thanks, Helen. That's great. Really great examples again. And Kerry, would you like to share? So the question is a quick reminder is what role do you think food plays in improving quality of life and well-being?
Yeah, well, some great points have been made already, I think, and I'd echo most of those. For us, I think it's very much about creating a multi-sensory experience for people. And one of the things that has come off the back of working with Food for Life is an activity around aromas and food aromas. And olfactory cues is something that I'm very interested in, actually. It's quite a new piece of research out there to stimulate appetite, and I'm hoping that's something we can work on in the future. But as everyone said, the social aspects and mirroring, particularly for people living with dementia, is very, very useful to help people orientate to the meal time and also to eat more. So I think generally food influences every aspect of your life. So if you get the food right, the quality of life will improve as well.
Thanks, Kerry. That's great. Really helpful to hear about. And so our next question is about how are you trying to make change happen, and you've already shared some really good examples of different aspects of work, and in addition to this question, the examples you shared, we'd be really interested to hear about if you have any experience of working with residents from different ethnic backgrounds as well. So shall we start with Helen for this question? So how is it that you're trying to make changes happen?
Okay, well, I'm looking at it from my role within the CCG, because obviously I'm not in a care home setting. So for me, it's about facilitating care homes to link with their local community, their pre and primary schools through the Food for Life whole settings approach. And it's about raising awareness with colleagues about its relevance to assist care homes to meet the CQC standards for when care homes are inspected. And also it's utilising the framework to humanise care settings and the needs of residents. Because sometimes, depending on, it can be quite clinical and nurse driven if they're in a nursing home. So it's about trying to get that balance between personalisation and also their medical and health needs. And also it's about recognising that residents are in their own home and that they are individuals and need to have independence. And the Food for Life whole settings approach model helps to promote well-being amongst both residents and staff, and that builds on the ELC work that was undertaken in 2015 through part of the high impact actions. And for me, it's great that, you know, we did that piece of work in 2015 and sort of did the findings in 2016, and we're now following up on that. So we asked them what was important, they told us, and we're now putting those actions into place.
That's great, Helen. Thank you. That's been really helpful to hear how you've been going about making changes through your role in the CCG. So, Kerry, would you be able to respond next to this question? So, again, just to reiterate, how are you trying to make changes happen within Asquith Hall, and also to add additional question, which has come through from one of our participants, about if you have any experience of working with residents from different ethnic backgrounds.
Okay, well, I'll address that one first about ethnic backgrounds, because I might forget if I leave it till the end. So we do have people from all different backgrounds, both in this role and previously. And I think really it's just about really culturally sensitive care planning and making sure you know the person. And to be honest, most things can be accommodated for. So yes, a little bit of experience. One of my bugbears is if there's a certain type of food that needs to be served and it's always the same meal given over and over again. So that's something we need to move away from generally, I think. Now, in terms of change management, I think the most important thing really is empowerment of staff and sharing responsibility and ownership. And I know our chef, Diane, got a lot of pride from sort of being shared around people for the work that she'd done around the modified diet. So it's really credit where credit's due, and making sure everybody's got ownership of the change and understanding why change needs to happen.
Thanks, Kerry. That's great, really helpful. And finally, Pam, would you be able to respond next?
Yeah, we have a lot of the families' involvement that we're asking them to be more involved when they come in to visit, to take their parents, you know, to the garden, and if something's maybe needing a wee bit weeded or that, they'll help us. We also have the local high school who come down and they'll help us to maintain the garden. That's basically it. What we do have is we have barbecues where we'll put a poster up for any volunteers to come in, staff and family, to, you know, do all the weeding, and if anything's ready to be picked. And it's always a success because we have a big barbecue, and you know, the onions that we grow are going on the burgers, you know, and it's a good day. So that's the kind of thing that we have, is involving the families and the local school, because the residents love having the kids in and telling them their stories about when they grew the biggest tomato or the biggest cucumber and that.
That's great. Thanks, Pam. And do you have any experience of working with residents from different ethnic backgrounds?
At present, we have one of our residents who is Chinese, and she doesn't speak any English. So it was difficult when it come to actually asking, you know, what she would like to eat. So with involvement with the family, who made up a book, all different pictures of different foods. So when we ask her what she'd like to eat, we can show her book, and she can point to what she would like. So that's helping us to get over that barrier of language, that we have this picture book, and she's able to now tell us, oh, I'll have that, or I'll have this, and you know, her meals are catered for.
Thanks, Pam. That's really helpful. Thank you. So our next question for discussion is, what have been the barriers that you might have encountered throughout this work, or you might be expecting to encounter? And we're really interested in hearing about what might have been tested as an idea or an approach, but you may have needed to make some changes and recognise what doesn't quite work in practice, and this is very important to the Better Care programme, as our approach through the programme is very much focusing on testing out solutions and really ensuring that we we capture that learning from what is being tested, and we take opportunities to refine the activities and the solutions that we're all implementing. So Kerry, would you like to start us off and describe some of the barriers that you might have been encountering along the way?
Yeah, so I think I touched on it earlier that we're very keen to start some intergenerational work because it's so valuable, and the benefits that of actually having children come to visit people who are in a nursing home environment, you know, they're immeasurable really, but because of the complex people that we look after, it's very, very challenging to get young children into the building just because of the risks. So it's been about being innovative and inventive about how we can involve the wider community in our home. So that's been a bit of a challenge, and it's something that we're still working on. But for example, we're looking at hens being hatched by the local school instead of children physically coming in. And something else we're doing is we're having a pride event in August, so we're getting some of the local schools to make some flags for that, for decoration. So it's just been a bit innovative in your thinking really. And I suppose the other barrier that you will always encounter with change is resistance from staff, and that just goes without saying. I think that some people don't adopt change easily, so it's just about empowering staff, understanding why change needs to happen, and generally they'll come on the journey with you most of the time.
Thanks, Kerry. That's really helpful to hear. And shall I move on to Pam? Would you be able to share any of the barriers that you might have encountered already, or that you're expecting?
Well, I think because we live in Scotland, everybody says it's always raining, so that's one barrier. When, you know, we might have to go out and get something from the garden, it's not very nice going out in that pouring rain. I think the barrier I can only really think of for us was probably having the chickens. That was a big responsibility which I took myself and another member of staff, because no one else, you know, a lot of people don't like birds, and that was difficult for us because, you know, if we're on our days off or on holiday, you know, you've got live animals that need looked after and cleaned. So I felt I was coming in on holidays and days off just to make sure, and that was a barrier because residents can't do it on their own. So yeah, it's great having live animals for people with dementia, you know, but it's, do you have staff who are willing to give up time to look after them? You know, when they're not at work or anything. That is, I would say, a main barrier when you have live animals in a care home, and the weather. But I would say they're the only two.
Thanks, Pam. It's helpful to hear about. Yeah, I'm sure if anybody has any questions about keeping hens, yeah, do ask on the instant messenger. And so finally, Helen, would you be able to share some of the barriers that you've encountered in your work?
Yeah, I think probably to start off with, and because I've been working with the care homes for a number of years, in a way it was easy, but it's about building up trust with the care homes, because often care homes are done to. So for me, it was really important to bring the care homes along on the journey with us, so that they become so that they are part of the solution. And I think for some settings, you know, we have had to build trust because they don't know it, they don't know me or the organisation. So it's about being able to have some open conversations and saying we're here to help you. And also it's about helping care home managers to support this pilot. You know, they see it as a priority, but also it's extra to their day-to-day pressures. And Bosworth Court have said to us that it's a great thing to do, really valuable, but it isn't our day, it isn't our all of our day to day. And this, you know, because at the end of the day, I'm still a nurse and I have to make sure residents are cared for at the correct level. And also it's a whole settings approach around wellbeing and good food, but there may be other things that come up. They realise the importance of it, but sometimes other things get in the way. It may be that they've got an inspection from somebody, maybe the local authority. It could be ourselves, the CCG, or it could be the CQC. So in preparing for that, other things have to maybe take second place, so that can be a barrier. And it's also about giving activity coordinators confidence to take ownership and run with their ideas for the different activities. And also for me, it's really important that care home managers are on board with this pilot and understand the approach of the good food culture, and you know, and the environment, and being able to help assist the activity coordinators to take ownership. And also it's about some of the barriers could be around how do you differentiate activities for residents with dementia, and to what extent do they do care homes engage everyone? Because there will be, as with a lot of things, those residents that will easily engage, but there will be others that you have to, or you need to try and persuade to get involved. So that can be a barrier. And also getting the intergenerational links. Looking at the needs of children with early years and seeing if they have similar needs to some of the older people, and interests and hobbies, and maybe linking those together. So it's about trying to work out how you can get that information and bring those two generations together, so that they can benefit from one another. And it's about having regular contact and not just the one-offs, like at Christmas when they come in and do a carol service, or maybe you know, Harvest Festival when they come in. So it's about trying to get something that's ongoing and sustainable, because you could get some missed opportunities.
Thanks, Helen. That's really helpful, and it's interesting to hear your perspective as somebody who is supporting a number of different care settings in your area as well. So just before we move on to the next question, we've had a question from one of our attendees participating about asking how all of this work is being evaluated and what sort of outcomes are being considered. So I'll just respond to that quickly before we move on to the next question. The Food for Life Better Care programme is being evaluated in different ways, and one of the ways one of our means for evaluating the programme is through working with the University of the West of England. The university are undertaking some focused evaluation on this area of work, on the whole setting approach to good food in care settings, and also evaluating work that is focused on hospital settings and supporting people in hospital settings to eat together on wards. So the sort of outcomes that are being considered as part of the evaluation of the Food for Life Better Care programme are how these approaches to good food that use co-design principles and testing and learning approaches and practices throughout, how these activities and projects are supporting the reduction in risk of malnutrition and loneliness. So those are two key areas two key indicators that we're interested in, and also quality of life and well-being more generally for people in later life and around this particular area of work within care settings. The evaluation is mixed methods, and recognising that the projects and the programme are working across a number of different approaches and working across a whole setting as well. So the methods that we're using are varying in the evaluation. So I hope that helps to answer the question very briefly, but we're very happy to share more information about the evaluation of the programme as well. So we'll move on to the next question for our presenters, which is how is this work having an impact on staff well-being or staff engagement? And a couple of you have touched on this already and referred to engagement of staff within care settings. So it'd be great if you could expand a little bit on what you might have already said. And let's start with Pam. Would you be able to answer that question first?
When it comes to meal times, a lot of staff will actually have their meal with the resident, sitting at a table. We have the dining rooms are all decorated really nice. It's a warm environment. There's no loud music, and the temperature and everything, you know, is well maintained for the residents. The staff they'll also do some biscuit decorating with the residents as an activity. Just getting seed digestive biscuits and getting them little wee sprinkles and icing, and the residents like to decorate that. The staff sometimes take them to the shops and they'll compare, see prices of carrots and things at the local supermarket compared to if you picked a carrot from our garden, the different colour it is compared to a supermarket one, and you know, this kind of thing. And we also have obviously the school's involvement is just great for the residents.
Thanks, Pam. And Helen, would you be able to share a little bit about how this work might be supporting, having an impact on staff wellbeing and staff engagement?
Yeah, I think this work is helping to stimulate a cultural change, or will help to stimulate a cultural change, and care home managers and their staff need to be supported to embed this change, as it will have a positive impact on both staff and residents' well-being. At the moment, for me, it's too early to say, but the initial findings are good. And also, one of the things that we know is that staff enjoy, when they can, being able to spend time with residents outside of the home. You know, when they take the residents out to restaurants, garden centres, parks, cafes, and they eat in different settings, they say it's really nice, and everyone's mood is lifted. And the other thing is, one of our homes, Bow Manor care home, is linked with a local nursery. And one of the things the manager was saying was that when the children come in to visit them and their residents, there's an uplift of noise within the home, but it's not from the children. It's actually from the residents who love being with the young children. And what they were saying is the staff absolutely love that time when the children come in. So, you know, it's good for everybody, and I think you have that good feel, and everybody's mood is lifted. So, and I think that's where this will assist in staff well-being.
Thanks, Helen. That's great to hear. And Kerry, would you like to share? as well, your response to this question.
Yes, so we actually had a new manager start called Siobhan. She started just after we joined up with Food for Life, actually. And one of the first things Siobhan wanted to do was a staff wellness week. So we really honed in on looking after the staff, including them in the plans to take the service forward. And that's had such a positive impact on the culture of the home. They also had staff rewards, which went down very well, as you can imagine. So it's really just about looking at your culture, making sure that your staff are happy, because really a good service, and certainly an outstanding service, is based in your staff. So it's just about empowering those staff to come on the journey with you, really.
Thanks, Kerry. That's really helpful. And just a little addition there from ourselves. Part of the evaluation is focusing on impact on staff as well. So our next, in fact, we'll just answer one of the questions that's come through from a participant. The question is, have you received support from local dietitians, such as MUST training or appropriate use of oral nutritional supplements and improving nutritional care? So maybe if we could just answer that very quickly before we move on to our last question, as we're getting closer to the end of the webinar. So would anybody from our presenters like to respond to that?
I can, if you're happy for me to do that. We have a project that's taking place across Leicestershire and Rutland, which is looking at reducing the use of ONS in both in care homes and in the community. So we have taken on dietitians to assist with this project, and they are working with our care homes to help them around diet and what they should be looking for to reduce the use of ONS. So that is an ongoing project that we've got.
Thanks, Helen. Kerry or Pam, would you like to answer that question? Have you received support from local dietitians?
To be honest, we do sometimes deal with dietitians, but we've got very much a food first approach. And I think certainly for people with a dementia diagnosis that is palliative, it's an ethical question as to whether oral nutritional supplements are actually a good idea towards end of life as well. So it's very much about working with the professionals and using a sensible approach to those. And if possible, we try to fortify and avoid unnatural supplements if possible.
Thanks, Kerry. Pam, did you want to come in as well?
Yeah, just regarding the MUST tool, all staff are trained on the MUST tool, and every resident's weight is taken every month, so it's monitored very closely. And the dietitian that comes in works quite close with the kitchen staff regarding menus and that, so we do work with dietitians.
Thanks, Pam. Okay, so our final question to presenters is, what is the impact your work is having? So this is quite a broad question, and hopefully we'll give you the opportunity to share with attendees on the webinar what you feel is the impact of your work. So shall we start with Helen?
Yeah, sure. I think part of the impact is that through the experience-led commissioning work we'd previously undertaken, care homes were more open to be part of this pilot project, as the relationships and trust had already been built. And also, I suppose one of the things is that we came across is barriers when children are poorly. So they can't always come into the homes. Lynn from Bosworth Court is connected with Stepping Stones and sees the children on a regular basis unless they're poorly. And the children have regular gardening activities, and they'll shortly be making food to share with the residents. And before the end of term, the children will have an afternoon tea with the residents and make sandwiches with them. And the nursery, which is great, are keen to not lose contact during the summer holidays. So, and they also want to open this experience up to as many children as possible. And they're already discussing what activities to do in the autumn term. And the manager, which is great, has given freedom to her, for her staff to make this happen. This is also a new experience for care settings, to have an organisation that's wanting to assist and help with coordinating links with preschools, local communities and organisations to assist with growing, because we've got links with people like Men in Sheds, and that they're helping with the homes that want to start doing some growing. And you know, it's very much, this is very much about how can we help you, and it's about you know, not finding fault. And I think this pilot has been like a breath of fresh air, because we're saying we're not here to pick holes. We just want to help you move forward and help you get the best that you can for your staff and your residents. And I think it's having a real positive impact, because it is seen as very different. And I think it allows staff to find space to be more open and confident in trying something new.
Okay.
And I suppose for me, from a CCG perspective, it's that we're giving opportunities to allow staff to make a change and try things that are new and innovative. You know, because there's so little out there to draw ideas, or there has been, to draw ideas and resources. And activity coordinators don't have a lot of money to do different things with their residents. And this also will help with the resident passport around reminiscence and looking at their likes and dislikes. So for me, this is sort of the whole package, really, as it says, the whole settings approach.
Thanks, Helen. That's great. Thank you very much for sharing that. We are at 3 o'clock, but we will carry on just to finish off the webinar. So we did start a little bit late, so I hope that's okay for most people on the webinar. So Kerry, would you be able to respond and share with us what impact has the work had for you?
Yes, so there's been quite a profound impact, really. It's created a real buzz around food, I think, in the home, and it's also given staff confidence to come forward with ideas. So something I mentioned earlier about Wine Wednesdays actually came from one of our residents who isn't really able to communicate fully in sentences about things she might like to do, was sat at the table one day and just said wine, and that's where the whole idea of Wine Wednesdays came from, just feeding in from that. So it's just about using creative solutions, really, particularly if people can't go into a lot of detail about activities they might like to do. So it's just being creative and looking for innovations around food, really.
Thanks, Kerry. And Pam, would you like to share a little bit more about the impact that your work has had?
It's getting staff to take more responsibility of doing activities regarding the garden with the residents. We've just had another raised bed built, so the staff are going to be having group meetings in the units with the residents and ask, you know, what they want to be put in this new raised bed, because it is their garden. The fact of quality of life that I just feel is that resident who came to us and who ended eventually going home to live, you know, back with his family through the garden and working with the chickens, and that is a great accomplishment. And we're all proud that, you know, we're able to give somebody a good quality life and make them feel valued and important when they're taking part in helping with the garden, giving them that responsibility and them just feeling like they have got a worth and they're not just sitting getting depressed or anything like that.
Thanks, Pam. That's really helpful to hear. So Thanks. That's the all of our questions that we're going through today on the webinar. I did just want to mention quickly that this is a series of webinars, and our next webinar will be taking place in July, and is going to focus on intergenerational linking. So we've heard a little bit about that today, but our next webinar will focus on that specifically. We've heard a lot of different stories and areas of learning and examples of different ideas that are being implemented in the setting. So we hope that today's webinar has provided a really good opportunity for us, our presenters, to share their knowledge, their learning, and the different ideas that are coming through the Better Care programme in their work. So I'd like to say a big thank you to Helen, Kerry and Pam for all of your input into today's webinar. Thanks ever so much, and also thank you to all of the people who have joined as attendees to this webinar and are watching and participating with questions as well. So thank you to all of you for joining us. As we mentioned at the beginning, this webinar is being recorded, and so we will share with you where to access the recorded webinar if you'd like to watch again or share with colleagues. And we'll bring the webinar to a close now. So thanks very much.